something that I found interesting in a group where a question was posed: what is Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s weaknesses? A fighter like Floyd Mayweather, who's a perfectionist, tries to perfect every aspect of uh, from outside the ring negotiations to inside the ring fights. It's not difficult to find chinks in his armor, but it is difficult to exploit those chinks. So I'm going to talk about several different things that Floyd Mayweather doesn't that can be exploited. But do understand that Floyd is a mind that can adjust, and just because he may have done it in one fight doesn't mean necessarily that you would be able to capitalize on that in the fight that he's fighting you with. So, one of the first things that most people observed is that when you have a really good jab, you can push Mayweather backwards. At least initially, early on in fights, you can do that. You can push him to the ropes. It increases your opportunities of throwing something and landing on it. Okay, so one of the keys is having a really good jab, but not just a really good jab. I always emphasize a really good. Clearly, Oscar De La Hoya had some success actually bloodying Floyd's nose with a jab. Marcos Maidana had an excellent uh, against Floyd with the jab, and also Miguel Cotto uh, did quite well against Floyd with a jab. I think those are the only people I can think of who were successful with the jab. I think Jose Luis Castillo had some success also with his jab. So I think those are the guys. Let's see if there's anybody else. Yeah, I think that's about it for now. So a jab is pivotal, but you need to have footwork with it. And the type of jab I would suggest is either a shotgun jab. That's the jab from low to high. Marcus Maidana employed something like that. Very quick jab. Uh, it's good for defense and it's also good for offense to set up your offense and set up your punches, whatever combinations you're coming with. Marcus Maidana threw the jab off the angle and he had a nice sharp jab, sort of almost shotgun, and he threw it at various times, various rhythms, etc. With Oscar De La Hoya, he had pretty much the stablemate jab, and Floyd was able to counter that jab and kind of neutralize his jab eventually. But Floyd and Pacquiao and Canelo, they try to neutralize guys' jabs. You know that you got a great jab, they're going to try and neutralize it, take it away from you. So bear that in mind. A good jab is a good tool against Floyd. A consistent good jab with good movement. Um, it's not really a weakness he has to the jab. He makes adjustments to it. He can replace. He has a good jab as well. So you have to be very careful. It's just what it is. The other weakness that Floyd has is into, I think somewhere around 2007 and onwards, Floyd's hands kept on breaking down. So Floyd had a couple of problems with his hands. So if you look at my hand here, all right, um, he had a problem with his wrist bone that it had been damaged, and he damaged his wrist bone on one hand, and he had a lot of his knuckles were broken. So he was missing knuckles in certain places of his hand. And if you don't have your knuckles, you can't really punch, really hurt people, even if you punch with a good amount of force. So those were some of the things. He had hand problems. Now a lot of boxers have hand problems, but Paulie Malignaggi's hands are, he breaks his hands on the drop of a dime. I don't even know why he did bare knuckle brawl because he knew he was going to get his hands broken up. Many boxers with broken hands, badly broken hands. I'm not talking about guys like George Foreman. George Foreman talks about he broke his hands all the time. Yeah, but um, it's a little bit different in the sense that with Floyd, it's not just the knuckles; it was the wrist area, it was the bones that connect these metacarpals here that connect to the wrist. So he was breaking up everything. Okay, especially when he punched a guy in his head, he would break bones in his hands. It really became an issue. It first started off, I think, with I think it was Carlos Hernandez. He broke his hand on Carlos Hernandez's head. He already had broken hands, damaged, injured hands going into the fight. And so another sort of thing that was going against Floyd throughout his career was his hands. His hands weren't, the most, consistent thing. And many times when he goes in for the kill, he break his hands multiple times, and he was like, you know what, I'm just not, I'm winning the fight. I'm not going to go in for the kill. So he'd abandon it. And people thought that Floyd didn't have kill instinct. Floyd has an eye for a lot of things. You know, would love to throw a lot more combinations. Would like to press the action, but wear and tear in the hands. And he had also two rotator cuff injuries on both shoulders. So uh, he had to get surgery after the Pacquiao fight for I think one of the shoulders or both of them. I can't remember. So he had a lot of injuries in his hands. Again, rotator cuff injuries are a common thing with boxers. And as a result of that, he had to preserve his hands so he could preserve his career. And pretty much he did everything he wanted to do in his career and some. So he retired so he could rest his hands and rest his body. And that's what he's done. If you look at Floyd's punches, people say he pulls his punches. Not so much he pulls his punches. He learned to punch now with a snap instead of just punching all the way through a target. Even though he still would do that, he'd punch all the way through a target and use a defensive maneuver. Uh, that was another thing that was a weakness for Floyd, his hands. Now it's not that he didn't have punching power; he had tremendous punching power all the way up to welterweight. I mean, he stopped Ricky Hatton in the 10th round, and that should tell you everything you need to know. He had punching. He has punching power. It's not that he doesn't have punching power. The problem with Floyd is you punch with enough force and power. You saw what he did to Robert Guerrero. He could have got Robert Guerrero out of there in the 8th round, damage his hands, right? When you punch with so much force and power, you're gonna break the hands. And when you break the hands, okay, so you could go for the kill, finish off the guy, and then you got to go tend to your hands. You know what I mean? So preserve the hands, and that's what he chose to do because he was winning the fight anyway. Floyd didn't need a knockout to win a fight, and as a result of that, he never resort to the knockout, and he showed us the fine art of boxing. I think another boxer that was like that, and it's amazing that people don't even everybody goes in on Floyd, but Colonel Whitaker was like that. Willie Pep was like that. Uh, um, you know, Charlie Burley was like that. And let me make this abundantly clear. Sugar Ray Robinson only got a 52% knockout ratio. I think 53%. Okay, Floyd has 54%, one a little bit higher than him. In other words, Sugar Ray Robinson wasn't really knocking out people left, right, and center. Okay, he was knocking out certain people left, right, and center. Okay, and he also knocked out some famous guys who were really known as aggressive fighters. But if you look at those aggressive fighters, their head was they weren't well balanced. Their head was over the center line, protruding forward, and they were leaning in, coming in for shots. So we just rock back and uppercut them, throw a left hook on them, and you can knock them out. You know what I mean? And these guys were famous guys. They were good fighters. Don't get me wrong. Just that they had certain flaws in their technique. So, Sugar Ray Robinson generally he beat some famous guys, but for the most part, most of his knockouts came from guys who weren't really that famous and weren't that accomplished. Okay, they're good fighters. Some of them were not. If we look at them today, we'd be like, man, I don't even know how that guy would rank so high. All right, so let's keep it moving. So anyway, my point is that his respectable KO ratio. In fact, Manny Pacquiao has about the same ratio KO ratio as Floyd does. If he doesn't have lower, I'm not too sure. I can't remember. So what does that mean? It means that he don't have all that. He don't have one hitter quitter punching power. Floyd in the lower weight classes he did, but as he moved up in weight, he didn't have one hitter quitter. He beat you to a pulp. He will beat you up, and that's how he gets you out of there. So Floyd, you know, would have to be savage, very aggressive, very savage, landing combinations on his opponent, and he'd get him out of there. So Floyd had to break down his opponents. Um, yeah. Here's another thing that Floyd can get doped into a little bit. You can dope, especially early in the fight, you can dope him into a trap. Marcos Maidana doped Floyd into throwing the pull counter one too many times, and he caught him with a beautiful counter right. And Floyd didn't get dropped, he didn't get floored, but he did get hurt at the end of that round. Um, Zab Super Judah again. Floyd being the aggressor. When Floyd's the aggressor, he can get hit, and you can counter him. You can counter Floyd when he's the aggressor. Zab Judah caught him with a check hook and knocked him off balance. I caught him a couple times also before that because Zab Judah not only had the quickness and the speed, but he also had the accuracy and the power to really affect Floyd. Floyd has a good chin, by the way, really great chin. Um, Aside from those guys, and aside from those things, there's one more thing that is susceptibility with Floyd Mayweather. Okay, but again, it's how do you exploit it? And once he figures out this is what you're doing to him, he's going to make an adjustment. So you only have that window for a certain period of time. But another thing with Floyd is that he throws about 40 punches around. Okay, if you can get him out of his rhythm and really get the pace of the fight faster, so you can throw more punches than he throws punches. Even if you don't land punches, he throws a certain amount of punches per round, right? He don't throw more than 40 punches around. Okay, now Deontay Wilder does the same thing. Canelo does the same thing. These fighters fight at a certain rhythm. Now, when he was younger, it wasn't that case. He threw a lot more punches. But again, his hands, he's very economical with it. Obviously, he has enough power to keep people honest, and it kind of stops people in their tracks because he's not punching predictably. Okay, he punches out of rhythm with your rhythm. He punches in between your rhythm and stuff like that. So he can catch you with a punch, and all of that plan and ideology about throwing 100 punches around or overwhelming them with punches, it goes out the window. You cannot just be an offensive beast. So the combination you need to have to beat Floyd, you got to be able to make adjustments. You got to have a decent boxing IQ. You got to have a good jab and good movement with that jab. Good movement with that jab. It's not just slipping punches. A guy was talking about how a good jab and a two and slipping punches, and making Floyd come to you. All of those things are good ideas. Now, here's the thing though. If Floyd's walking you down, that's not a good thing. Because if Floyd's walking you down, he's gonna get hit. No doubt about it. You look at it in the Olympics when he was fighting the Cuban, slick, skilled Cuban, he walking his ass down the whole fight. Okay, he got caught with punches and he just walked through them, and he's catching the Cuban and just and beating the shit out of the Cuban. Okay, my point being, you can't just box Floyd. If you're going to try and box Floyd, he's going to assault you. He's going to come at you. He's going to get countered. He's going to get hit with shots. He's going to walk through some of them shots because he can take shots. He can take punishment. You might bust his nose and all of that, but he's still going to walk through them, and he's going to get. So if you're going to say I'm going to let you come to me, he's going to put more pressure on you. He's going to up the pace to make you have to react to him instead of you trying to set traps for him. Okay, so it's a little tricky of a situation. When I've been studying this guy to see how possibly you could beat him, right? So you need to be smart about it. Miguel Cotto, he set Floyd into traps so Floyd would walk into his jab because remember Miguel Cotto is a southpaw, but his lead hand is his left hand. So Miguel Cotto would sometimes go to the southpaw stance and then tee off with the left hand, or sometimes he just jab him right there. So he switched stances, and that made Floyd walk into his jab, and that was the round. I think it was round 8, one of them, where he busted up Floyd's face. It wasn't because he was chasing down Floyd this time, but Floyd was coming to him. So you have to be able to. The other thing is, and this goes for any boxer actually, once Floyd is pursuing you and chasing you down, and he thinks he has the upper hand, that's the moment he's most vulnerable because that's the moment you could spring something on him and catch him. You think of Floyd when he got overconfident with Manny Pacquiao, get caught in the fourth round, the sixth round, because he's hunting. He was on the hunt He thought he had everything in the bag, but that's when you can set a trap for him. Okay. Same thing with Marcus Maidana. He was pull counting Marcus Maidana. Is confident, so he set up for the pull counter again. Marcus Maidana caught him. So you gotta get him a little bit overconfident. Let him think that his little game plan and his little trick that he's doing is working, and then you spring the trap on him. That's how you trap set Floyd. Um, and you got to be smart about it because, as you can see, in all those fights, he won them because he made adjustments. So even if that works, you still have to make an adjustment to set another trap for him. So these are the things you need to add. So when people say, "Oh, you have to be aggressive and run down Floyd and throw 100 million punches," you're not gonna win a fight that way because he's too clinical with it. He's gonna land precise shots on you, and the judges are gonna see it. So you gotta be a lot smarter. You have to be a little bit more measured. Okay, you mix it up. So one, you need to have a good jab and good movement. Two, you need to make sure that you can get him overconfident so you can set traps for him. Most likely, he's coming to you. When he's coming to you, he's more vulnerable than when you're going to him. See, everybody falls for that trap, that they're going to knock out Floyd. Well, you ain't going to knock out Floyd if he's going backwards. You want to catch him going forwards. Okay? Walk him into a trap. Uh, three. I'm four, sorry. The other thing I talked about was with Floyd Mayweather, his hands. His hands actually are not, they're the thing that he preserves. That's why he only has 40, he throws like 40 punches per round. Okay? So you want to up the pace a little bit so you can get him to use his hands more, but also you want to be able to make him come to you if possible. You catch him with something, you get very aggressive initially and you go to him, you catch him with something, and then you back off. You're using your jab and you're pivoting to let him come to you so you can trap set him. Okay? And you don't spring the trap immediately, obviously. You let him have some success and then you spring the trap, right? So those are the kinds of little things you got to do with Floyd. And those are some of the weaknesses I saw in his game that you can exploit. So you must have a certain degree of ring IQ. That is to say, you know where you are in the ring. Two, you need to have a good jab and good movement. Three, you set traps by letting him come to you, but you got to be smart enough to go to him. You must know that you must pressure him, and when you want him to come to you, you set it up, you spin it around so he will come to you. Okay. The other thing you want to look at is, remember, he only throws a certain amount of punches around. So you want to keep the pace at a certain pace where you're throwing more punches than he is. All right. And then the last thing I got, like I said before, is Floyd Mayweather is a guy who, yes, he takes pride on defense, but he'll be whatever he needs to beat you, right? You have to be somebody who has a certain degree of versatility where you don't lack in terms of fighting. You need to be able to fight at any range, whether it's inside the pocket. If you specialize on inside the pocket, that's a good thing. Mid range or outside the pocket. You must be able to be capable to do all those three. Mika Cotto could have done all three. I think Mika Cotto was the toughest fight that Floyd ever had in his career. Um, I don't think anybody else comes close. Jose Luis Castillo, no. Um, as I said before, I thought Floyd won the first 5 rounds, and then he, of course, took round number 8 because Castillo fouled him. So he just needed one more round to win the fight. I thought he took the 11th round. I didn't think he took the 12th, and that's 7-5 already. I think Castillo got the ninth. I think Castillo got the 6th and 7th. It's a toss up with the 12th actually. So if you gave him the 12th, then it'll be 8-4 like the judges had it. I had it 7-5, 8-4 is a good thing. But still thing was he came on too late. He came on in the fight too late. You know, too little, too late, and that's why he lost the first fight. The second fight, again, it was a close fight up to round 10. And Floyd took it over because Castillo quit. He had literally quit. He gave up after round 10. And Floyd took the 11th and 12th. So, that's how that fight went. All right. So, those are the weaknesses of Floyd Mayweather as far as I can see them. They're not exploitable as easy as you think. And he does change up his game. And he does make adjustments in his game. So, where that window might be open initially, it closes really fast. And that's the thing. Shane Mosley, I think Nazim Richardson was explaining to Mosley, you're gonna have that opportunity to counter Floyd, get him overconfident. He's gonna forget the distance range, and you can counter his ass, which he did. But that window closes really fast. And when Floyd gets super sharp, you wake him up and he gets super sharp. Now it's gonna be a problem. And he said the dragon, when the dragon come out of him, you can't stop him. And the dragon came out of Floyd and he beat the shit out of Mosley. But listen, the point is, you get chances. Okay, they're not chances you get all the time, but you get chances with Floyd. And also, being a little rough and rugged, because Floyd more Marcus Queensberry rules. Of course, Floyd could be rough and rugged if you've been rough and rugged. And Andrew was the same thing. Um, but being a little rough and rugged doesn't hurt either. Okay, so that's what I got for you guys. I'm what you need. I'm gonna catch you guys later. Peace out. Don't forget, you can comment, subscribe, share, or donate via Western Union MoneyGram. Contact me for donating to the Western Union MoneyGram. I'm gonna catch you guys later. Peace.